Good afternoon, one and all. My name is Yamini. I am a research scholar working with Dr. Molly Kuruvilla in the Department of Women's Studies, University of Calicut. We are all gathered here because we are attending this 7-day workshop. It's an international online workshop on qualitative, mixed and participatory methods in research. The new research trends in qualitative research are going to be familiarized on this platform. And research scholars, guides, and faculties are going to be tremendously benefited from this program. And we are extremely overwhelmed and humbled by the kind of response we have, received for this program. And we have 3 eminent scholars with years of experience behind them coming here and doing this workshop for us. We have Professor Jaya Dantas from Curtin University, Australia, Professor Polly Wacklin from Guwahati University, Assam, and Professor Veena Vaswani at Yenepoa University, Mangalore. We have scholars and faculty from various Indian and foreign universities here with us, and it gives me great pleasure to invite you all to be a part of this learning experience with us. And there are just a few ground rules that I would like to state before we begin the program. This program requires a daily registration. I know all of you have joined the WhatsApp group, and that is why we are attending this meeting here. So for certain safety and security measures, we have asked for daily registrations. So please register in advance for the meetings when they are ready. Participants are also required to come slightly prepared with some of the readings that we've been sharing in the WhatsApp groups. Please stay muted while the program is active, and keep your questions for the end in the chat box. Or as and when you have questions, you can type them in the chat box, and they will be discussed towards the end of the program so as to not disturb the resource person. I wish for all of your cooperation for the successful and, for the success of this venture and successful completion of this program. I now request my guide and supervisor, Dr. Molly Kuruvilla, the founding director of Center for Women's Studies, University of Calicut, and the coordinator of this workshop, to welcome the gathering.
Okay. Thank you, Yamini. I'm still waiting for our resource person of the day, Professor Jaya Dantas, to join. So regarding the workshop, this 7 days international workshop, I would like to tell you a few things. As you all might be well aware, there is a paradigm shift in research methodologies, with qualitative research becoming the trend today. Yes, the world is in search of original ideas and actual realities. Exploring the genuine situations, their causes and reasons become more viable with qualitative methods. In June 2020, I had an opportunity where my edited book on Handbook of Research on Gender Mainstreaming and Women Empowerment was published with IJA Global California. And there were 39 authors from 9 countries as the contributing authors of the 28 chapters. While going through these chapters, I could see a noticeable difference in the rigorous methodologies used in the foreign contributions. I do not mean our research is not good or not up to standard. Definitely they are. But the variety of methodologies and tools used by foreign authors was highly impressive. And grounded theory and thematic analysis, photo voices and narratives were part of several of these chapters. And from that time onwards, I have been thinking about getting an opportunity to get more insights into such methodologies, and that too from the horse's mouth, who are very well used and thorough with such methodologies. And and this is a time when we strive to maintain international standards in teaching and research. So while I was discussing such issues with several of my friends in foreign universities. Our resource person for today, Professor Jaya Dantas from Curtin University, Australia, she offered a help in conducting a workshop on qualitative research methods. And this offer ended up as the present 7-day workshop. And as suggested by Professor Jaya Dantas, what we have now is a kind of preliminary workshop, which will be followed by a rigorous workshops for interested research guides alone in the future. So the contents of this workshop include the tools and technologies in qualitative research that are prominently used in international research settings, and the participants would get an exposure to the reputed scholars who have successfully undertaken mega projects of global significance. Here, rather than gaining theoretical information, the participants would gain from the first-hand experiences of resource persons who have used these methods in their research. And in these 7 days, we have adopted a sequential method in introducing the various trends, beginning with the introduction to the concept and relevance of mixed methods in research, and finally on the 7th day, ending up with the fine tunes of international publications. Professor Jaya Dantas is such an amazing scholar with many years of experience working with international agencies. So this is an excellent opportunity to listen to them, to people with experience with the latest trends. With all my respect and gratitude, on behalf of University of Calicut and the Department of Women's Studies and all the participants present here, I extend a very hearty welcome to Professor Jaya Dantas, the resource person of the day.
Meanwhile, I will give you a quick profile of Dr. Jaya Dantas. Dr. Jaya Dantas is currently Deputy Chair of the Curtin Academic Board, Professor in the School of Population Health and Dean of International Faculty of Health Sciences. Since 2018, she has led the Faculty Global Positioning Portfolio and previously held the office of the Director of Graduate Research role. As a teaching and research academic, Professor Dantas leads a program of research in refugee and migrant health, teaches in MPH program, and is an experienced PhD supervisor. In her 34-year career, she has worked in India, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Australia, and has received the National Award for University Teaching and is the president of Australian Graduate Women and has been a delegate to the Commission on the Status of Women at the UN. Having held such important leadership roles, she has a multidimensional approach to teaching, research, and leadership, and is heavily grounded in gender and diversity. And it's indeed an honor to have someone like her address us.
So, Professor Dantas, you are all welcome. All the participants are waiting for you. Okay. So the session for the day is mixed methods in research, the introductory topic. So I extend a very, very hearty, warm welcome to you. Please come in and join us.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm very pleased to be here and very pleased to be talking about mixed methods in research and overview with research examples here. So in the next half an hour or so, I am going to talk to you about some of the research studies that I have undertaken, one in Western Australia and one by my PhD student in Uganda with mixed methods. And I'd like to thank Professor Molly for giving me this opportunity to share this research that I have undertaken with your PhD scholars, with other academics and other researchers. I would like to begin. One thing that we do in Australia is we do the acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional owners of the land on which I present. They are the Noongar Nation in Perth, Western Australia, and they have been here for 50,000 years. They are one of the oldest people, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. And one of the things that I also like to do is, as a migrant woman who has been welcomed in Australia, but has also lived in 5 other countries, I work with people from all around the world. And this is what I want to share with you, the values of respect, honesty, and integrity, with also reflect what my university stands for. Now, I am predominantly a qualitative and a mixed methods researcher. And at the same time, I'm also a researcher who has lived in many countries. I was fortunate enough to be born in India, in Mumbai. I finished my master's degree and taught at the S&T Women's University for 3 years. And in 1990, I left India for Africa. I then spent 10 years in Africa working in the education sector in Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. And in these countries, I helped with the education change. I lived through another pandemic, which was the HIV pandemic. Now, when I came to Australia, I came to do my PhD, and then I've stayed on as a researcher, as a teacher, as a university academic with a leadership position too. But as a qualitative and a participatory researcher, I'm going to take you all on a little journey now and just ask you all to consider, what do qualitative researchers think about? They want to see the world through the eyes of their respondents or participants and to understand. They want to describe the context. They want to show how social change occurs. And they also want their research to be flexible and to be able to change so that they can bring about change. So one of the things that you have to remember is never do research just for the sake of research. Do research because it will have the capacity to bring about change. It has the capacity to transform. It has the capacity to give voice. Now, in qualitative methods is used when little is known about a topic. The research context sometimes is poorly understood. The boundaries of a domain are ill-defined. The phenomenon is not quantifiable. The nature of the problem is not clear. And sometimes, as a researcher, you want to examine an issue. Now, some of the challenges associated with qualitative research is the emergent design. We do not know what we will find. We can only anticipate how the study will proceed. And we accept that there's a range of ways of making sense of the world, because truth is only valid in a specific context. And I want you all to think about this aspect, because when you actually do research, as I do, with some vulnerable populations and marginalized populations, very much so, people make sense of their world in a specific context. So here, I won't go so much into this because I'm conscious of time, but I wanted to say what happens with qualitative and quantitative studies. So in qualitative studies, you make observations to develop theory, whereas in quantitative studies, you make observations to test theory. And in some ways, I will be talking about grounded theory, where there's development of theory next week. And some of the philosophical assumptions are there in qualitative research, and where it's subjectivity, the context, reasoning in depth, and there's depth and words. So the depth of the study is really important. And the qualitative approaches that we are going to talk about is narratives, phenomenology, grounded theory, ethnography, and case study. But in these few days, I'm going to talk about narratives. I'm going to talk about grounded theory. I'm also going to talk about a little bit about ethnography in narratives in these sessions that I'm going to do. But in quantitative, it's descriptive studies. It can be correlational studies, quasi-experimental and experimental designs. And once again, is qualitative and quantitative differences. Often one thing about qualitative studies is the quantity is not important, the large sizes are not important, but it is smaller sizes. And basically, it may not be randomly selected. and it's words and images and objects. And tomorrow when I do photo voice, I'm going to talk about photos or images that the participants have undertaken. And once again, qualitative studies are dynamic, they're situational and personal, and there's a wide-eyed lens. But methods can be mixed. First, there was this school of thought where it was felt that you cannot mix methods. Methods can either be only quantitative and qualitative, but now methods can be mixed. And most studies say you can have quantitative studies, but you can actually have the qualitative arm to understand why. In the situation of COVID, say, you do large-scale epidemiological studies to do vaccine trials and all of that, but you need the qualitative studies to understand the context of, say, vaccine hesitancy, or to understand the context of anti-vaccine movement. It's only when you talk to people you understand that. So how methods can be mixed, where you mix two types of research questions, the manner in which research questions are developed, two types of sampling procedures, and two types of data analysis can happen, and two types of conclusion. And I'm going to show you how you can do. So there's three types of designs that I'm going to talk. It gives you a better understanding of the problem. You can combine both quantitative and qualitative. You can merge data. You can connect data. You can embed data. So mixed methods has these aspects. So this is a convergent parallel design in mixed methods. So you have the quantitative element and the qualitative element, and then you have the data analysis in both, and you have the strategies to merge the two data sets and draw your analysis or conclusions. And you interpret the merged results. So this is a parallel design, and then it converges to form a convergent parallel design. Then you have a sequential explanatory design, which can be 2 phases or 3 phases, where you collect quantitative data followed by qualitative data, and a greater emphasis may be placed on one or the other. So you can have a survey that you conduct. You can follow up with a few individuals. And this is the study that I'm going to talk about today. This is what we conducted in 2015 and 2016. And this was quantitative phase, where we did a literature review. We did secondary data analysis of census data in Australia. Then we had the phase 2, which was the qualitative data, and the phase 3, which was quantitative and qualitative. And we combined all of those. And each phase had deliverables. We had a systematic review. We had a typology of skilled migrants. We had a conference paper. In the second one, we had recommendations and a journal article. And in the third one also, we had a journal article. And this is the journal article that we published and I've shared. We've had 2, one of the quantitative data and one of the mixed methods data. And I've shared that with Professor Molly. In an embedded design, a single data set is not enough. The 2 types of data answer different research questions. The collection and analysis may occur before, during, or after the first data collection. And you can have supplemental qualitative data. So here again is an embedded design. Study 1 informs objective 2 of the study 2, and then informs overall program objective of study 3. And this is a study taken by one of my colleagues. He talked about the gay men in Perth, homosexual men, and their experiences of sexuality, risk, and HIV. And he did 3 surveys at 2-year intervals to 1,500 men. Then he had in-depth interviews with 25 gay men. And he used symbolic interactionism to understand meaning, sexual behavior, risk, meaning of settings, and models of theory developed. So this is his framework. It was a funded study and it had multiple phases. So the first was the gay committee, and you build trust, and you had 10 men of the gay community. Then you understand the issue, you do focus group discussions. Then you based on the focus group discussion, you undertake content and thematic analysis. Then based on that, you have a survey of gay men, and that survey went out to 374. Then there was the results of that, and then based on that, there were in-depth interviews and an audit of 20 men. And then in final phase, there was a framework that was developed, which was called the CABE model. And this was then disseminated to various leaders. So in conclusion, in the mixed methods, what I'd like to say is that from the 1970s, researchers have been trying to combine qualitative and quantitative methodologies. And they are everywhere today, in handbooks, in readers. And it's a method that is used and endorsed by major professional bodies, as well as public and private funding agencies who want both quantitative and qualitative methods. And as members of a larger research community, we all need to draw together so we can share our problems and experiences. So we need new research ideas and agendas. So this is the background. And now I'm going to take you straight away into the study. So this was the minimizing skills wastage and maximizing the health of skilled migrants groups. Now, I have shared this with you before. So basically what happened here is the study was funded by a bank, which has a link with Curtin University and an economic center. And what we wanted to see is that skilled migrants who come into Western Australia, how do they experience getting jobs in Western Australia? This was our premise of the study. And for this, we did 3 different phases. So in the first phase, we used secondary data analysis of census data. In the second phase, we talked to stakeholders, 13 stakeholders. And then based on that, we developed an online survey and we administered that to 510 participants. And then we asked from those participants who would like to be interviewed, and we interviewed 14. So this was our reference group. Always have a reference group that will guide your studies. It actually adds depth and confidence to your studies. So we had from skilled migrants, migration agents, private NGOs, industry, and from the regional areas. So this is some of the census data analysis of 2011, and it showed that there were quite a lot of migrants who were between the ages of 20 to 39 years between 2011 and 2016. So this highlighted that they were in the employment age group. The second was that the preliminary findings from stage 1 showed this was what it was, which countries they came from, which regions they came from, and male and female percentages also. Then what were the countries and regions they came from? So this was a distribution by gender and date of birth, whether they were employed in full-time and part-time work. So most of them, 41%, were full-time work, but there was a small percentage who were in part-time work and a few who were unemployed. So basically, there would be 8 to 10% who were unemployed and some who were not in the labor workforce. And again, some of the preliminary findings that they were not in the labor workforce, they did part-time work, they were employed away from home. And these were the key quantitative findings. So 14% of our study population reported experiencing discrimination and racism because of their migrant background. But more than 60% had high levels of organization respect and care and skill. So key qualitative findings, there was skills wastage. So if they had come to Western Australia as engineers or teachers, sometimes they were not working as that. They would work at a lower level. There were employment barriers. There was a lack of recognition of overseas skills. There were health and well-being issues. And then we developed the skilled migration transition framework. So some of our results of the online survey with 500 participants showed that there was 30% female and 69% male, and about 50% of them were in part-time or casual work. So males, in the males, and 45% and females. So this is a problem in Australia, is the casualization of the workforce. And people have work, we have low unemployment rates, but a lot of the people have casual work or part-time work, which is problematic in the future. And the 14 participants were from 9 different countries. They were from a range of participants, from a range of professions, and they had a range of visas, student visas, permanent resident, and different visas. And some of the barriers that they faced is the recognition of overseas skills and experience. So basically, here was someone who was a dentist who had come from Eastern Europe. She was a maxillofacial surgeon back in her country. But then she had studied dentistry, she had done medicine, she was an oral surgeon. But when she came in here, it was very difficult for her to work as a dentist, and she had to work as a dental assistant. So basically, another person said, I might have a master's degree and have research experience from my country, but I do not have Australian experience, and that is a problem. Then the language and cultural barriers are also a problem. Lack of social support is a problem, where you say it's hard because you don't have your social support system. You don't have friends. You don't have had your family or those whom you have known for your whole life. They talked about some of the mental health issues and physical health issues. So a small number of migrants face mental health issues. And others with physical health is you have what is known as chronic disease that comes up because you make a transition to your lifestyle when you come into another country. And based on that, we developed a skilled migration transition framework. And this is a framework that you can actually help to see how people can come into the country with a pre-migration kit, an employment kit, there's workforce kit, an occupational kit, a settlement kit, and an employer and integration kit. So these are important things, and we have modified this based on the findings of our mixed method study through the WHO Human Resource Framework. So now in the next few minutes, I go to the next study in northern Uganda. And this study was conducted by my PhD student, Barbara Natabi. She is Ugandan, and she now lives in Australia and is at the University of Western Australia. But she looks at women's social position and the desire for children, even when you have HIV. And this was a study in northern Uganda. So in globally today, 37.9 million people are infected with HIV. So I was in Africa when it was a pandemic in Africa, and 25.7 million people are in sub-Saharan Africa. So I lived in sub-Saharan Africa in the countries of Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. And the major route of HIV transmission in Africa is sexual, through heterosexual contact. Whereas in the United States and Australia, when the HIV outbreak started, it was mostly homosexual. And another thing that has happened in Uganda is there's mother-to-child transmission. So the total population of Uganda is about 45 million, and what estimated number of people living with HIV is 1.4. And the number of children also living with HIV is 98,000. But about 80 to 90% of them have antiretrovirals and can live a good life. The main transmission is heterosexual. So 79% is heterosexual through sexual contact, but 21% is from mother to child. And every year, about 22,000 deaths are caused by HIV. Now, the context of this study was in northern Uganda. For those of you who may not know, this country has had conflict, 20 years of conflict with Idi Amin's time, Milton Obote's time, but it's bordered by South Sudan, and you have huge conflict in that area. So the HIV prevalence is quite high, 8.2%. And in 2006, many people lived in displaced camps like this. So this is an internally displaced camp. And these are two images of HIV victims before antiretrovirals. So it's very, very complex what these people are faced with at that time. And the research questions were, what are the fertility desires of people living with HIV? And what are the implications of these desires for mother-to-child transmission and reproductive health programs in Africa? And what they found is the wish or the intention to have children, fertility desire, despite a diagnosis of HIV. So, you have HIV, there's a strong possibility of transmitting from mother to child, but you still desire to have a child. So the mixed methods, the quantitative arm was a survey that we administered to 476 male and female people living with HIV between the ages of 15 and 49 years in 3 health facilities in northern Uganda. It was a structured questionnaire based on the Uganda Demographic Health Survey. 160 respondents from one hospital, 210 from an NGO called TASO, and 98 from the Gulu National Hospital. And it was analyzed using SPSS. In the qualitative arm, 26 interviews with people living with AIDS, also with Ministry of Health officials and with NGOs. And some of the social demographic characters, I won't go into this because you have the paper that I've shared that we published, and Professor Molly has this. Reproductive and HIV history is here, and the desire for children. It was quite interesting that in all of these arms, people wanted to have more children, even though they had a HIV diagnosis. So some of the predictors were age, gender, marital status. If you've had no children, if you are on antiretrovirals, then you want to have children, the HIV status of the partner, and all of this impacts the predictors of fertility desires. They also look at the history or the death of a previous child, discussion of family planning, and discussion of family planning with partner or the HIV status. And some of the other predictors were also mentioned here. But with the qualitative findings, which were interesting, was these motivation that they had. It was a fulfillment of societal expectations. They feel that the child will reflect glory and prove adequacy. And it was also altruistic, this affection for children. The decision regarding fertility is because of spousal societal influences. A lot is linked with your fertility and your ability to have a child. Then the male dominance in fertility related decision making and health worker influences. Then inhibiting factors, personal health concerns, concerns for children's health and their potential infections, and the justification for childbearing. And there was a low use of family planning despite high knowledge of family planning, because they did not want to limit family sizes. In African culture, large families are seen as really positive. There were high fertility desires. Those with few children wanted more children. And women see children as a part to respect and obtaining a social standing. And the bride wealth is associated with her reproductive rights. And summary. So many people in the study continued to have children and want children, and they were valuable. Children were valuable in traditional societies. And this should be taken into account while designing reproductive health programs and preventing mother-to-child transmission. And just a picture of a mother who's HIV positive, but with a happy children who she's on antiretrovirals and has been able to lead a successful life. So I will stop here, Molly, and I'll stop sharing, and then we'll have a short time for questions also.
Okay, thank you, Jaya. Thank you. So here in this session on mixed methods in research, you have shown all the groups also. So they like to know to what extent these mixed methods are possible. So in funded researches, we have enough more of resources and all, and we will be able to do such vast studies and all. In the case of smaller studies, for example, in the second one is a PhD study actually. So in our PhD work of 3 years time, in how far and in what all ways we could use these mixed methods?
So one thing I'll say, just give me 1 minute. I have to put on the light. It's become dark in the room.
Okay. Okay.
So what I'd like to say is it has to start at the planning stage itself, Professor Molly. So when the student is doing her candidature in the first 6 months to 7 months, so in Australia, a PhD is 4 years. So within a four years, if they're doing it full time, in the first 6 months, they plan the study and they decide that they'll have a mixed method design and how they'll undertake it. You can do a small study with a mixed method design, and it's very possible to have the quantitative arm and the qualitative arm too. So it is possible. It's designing the research questions and the aims and having access to the population. But like we did in the first study, we used census data first, and then based on that, we interviewed a small group, and then we circulated to do a mixed method study in the Indian context because your population size is so large.
And what I have found in your studies is that first you go for some kind of quantitative, then move on to qualitative, again you go for something more, and again you come back to small group, again going to large group, such kind of alterations.
Yes.
You do a lot much of work like that. In our usual cases, what we do is, we will go for a quantitative study and we will just supplement it with a few case studies or something like that. And so, again, we don't go back. But in your case, this is quite amazing to see that you do something quantitative, then you go for some in-depth interviews, again you go back to the group, again you come back. That is something new for me because I have not,
In the migrant study, we had 3 phases. So the first phase was just a literature review and secondary data from census. In the second phase was in interviews and the large survey development. And then in the third phase was interviewing. So yes, we have done that. And that's where it's sequential mixed method design and a convergent design. Whereas Barbara in northern Uganda, she actually sent the survey to 3 hospitals, 3 places where they were giving antiretroviral treatment. And then from that, she actually interviewed 26 people. So she didn't do as much as we did in the studies that I explained with others. So mine was a sequential design. Hers was in those 2 arms because she had a finite amount of time in Uganda.
So I think that is possible in our cases also. In the PhD work, we also have some finite timing. And so this sequential program, the sequential process in the research methods, that won't be that much easy in the case of PhD works with a finite timing.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
So I think it depends on the research team and deciding with the PhD student what can go and how the candidate, how strong she or he is to take it further.
Okay.
Now, I've seen a question they asked is how mixed methodology helps to contemporary historical research on marginalized societies. So the research that we've done is on marginalized populations, refugee and migrant groups, or historically marginalized populations in northern Uganda, but if it all depends on the research question that you're trying to examine, and that's really important. So have a good research question and some research aims as to what you would like to explore.
Hello?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Ma'am, I have a small doubt on that. When we have to go to the mixed method, so maybe some data is very high, like the quantitative part is also maybe 100 or 200 data. Maybe qualitative side is a very less number of interviews. So how can we have to fix the percentage or anything like that? A minimum requirement needed like a minimum data from the. Is it clear, my voice?
Yes, yes. Professor Jaya, I think he has asked, when you go for quantitative data, you will be having a larger sample. And then for the qualitative interviews, in-depth interviews and all, you will be going to a smaller or restrictions on the minimum number of people required for the qualitative aspect.
No, there's no requirement at all in qualitative. It's the depth of information you obtain and the transferability of that information. So in qualitative research, you can have large number of participants, but you can also have very small number of participants. It is the depth of data and data saturation. So as you interview, if you keep getting the same answers, that means you have reached an amount of data saturation. Whereas with quantitative, the larger, the better, so that it can be more generalizable. But if you're working with marginalized groups, you can't have a very large sample, and that's okay. So at present, we are just finishing a mixed method study with Burmese refugee women in Western Australia. And they are, and basically, they have not been able to have a lot of education, but they have now living in Western Australia, and it's quite difficult for them. But we had about 85 for the survey and about 15 to 18 for the interviews. So that's perfectly okay.
Okay, that's it. So
yes.
For the quantitative thing, you had such a larger number, and for the qualitative interviews, you selected a few. And there is no clear-cut regulations or anything with regard to going for the number of people for qualitative data. And it depends upon the quality. Any further queries? So I think if there is no further queries, things are all clear, because today Professor Dantas was introducing us to the concept of mixed methods and how studies could be conducted using mixed methods. And fortunately, she had circulated these 2 articles with us, and we have all read that and familiar with how to do it and all. So, and one new understanding I got from today is the way with which we could sequentially go for one after another, then coming back again, going for that. Then that is something new for me. And I'm so thankful to you, Dantas. And another thing, as asked by Dr. Anish, that there is no such restrictions. What should be the number? You can go for any number, but preferably when it comes to qualitative in-depth data and all, we cannot go for larger numbers. We can actually go for smaller numbers, but the only thing is we must get enough data from it. Data saturation. What kind of data we are getting? If we are not getting enough data that we expected, we could go for more and more people and all. Likewise, we can move on.
Yes.
Okay. So
I've shared this broad overview, but if there's anyone who might be interested and wants to email me to have a discussion, I'm happy for them to email me. It's not a problem, Professor Molly. Yeah, they can email me and you can share the article overview to just get people thinking that this is a possibility and it has been undertaken, and it actually strengthens a study. And they can do something in future after they finish their PhDs, when they're academics and they want to undertake a study, then they can do that.
Great. Thank you so much. See, that is Professor Dantas. She's very much willing to extend herself to anybody, anywhere on the earth. And we are so thankful to you, Professor Dantas. And now it is almost 4:40. And I know in Australia, the time is 2.5 hours ahead of India. So it might be darker there. Anyway, thank you so much. And we are meeting again tomorrow. And tomorrow, I think there won't be any such issues with the technological. Just nothing will happen tomorrow, because we will join on time with no issues. Yeah. So since live streaming is also there, I think we should go with the Zoom platform itself. And majority of them are on the live stream. Very few are there in our room. Okay. So Dantas, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I think if you can have an opportunity to see those in the live stream, if they had any questions, they could also ask questions if needed.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know how that is possible, but that's something that you could consider. And what I will do is, today I will now send you the photo voice paper for tomorrow's seminar.
Okay. Okay, photo voices, that is something new for us, majority of us. Anyway, once we send the article, we will be circulating it to all the participants, and we will be coming prepared to listen to you tomorrow and take the workshop ahead. More and more deeper, something newer and deeper. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. I've just told the live stream people, if they have any questions, they can post it. Yeah. Could we wait for like 2 minutes and see if anyone has any responses?
Oh, yes.
Yes, no problem.
Yeah. Okay.
Are they able to send you the questions, Yamini?
Yes, they are. And they've asked for your email address, if they can reach out to you later.
Yeah.
Shall I give your university ID? Yeah. Can
I? No problem.
I'm just sharing that here. They're letting us know that it was a very insightful session, and but so far no questions.
So someone is asking, does it require to come, in the case of sequential mixed method, or only one time qualitative and then quantitative would be enough? Yes, it would be enough. If you have a shorter duration of time, you can have one time qualitative and one time quantitative. That's the convergent design that I showed first. So quantitative, qualitative, the analysis, and then you converge the analysis and the findings. So that is very possible. That also would be enough. And that's called a convergent design. I think we can, it's all right. I think they
Yes,
have.
ma'am. If we have any more questions, we shall take them up later, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can send you the questions and you can let me know also, no problem.
For sure. Okay, ma'am.
So, Yamini, I would like to thank Professor Jaya Dantas, who, in spite of all the ditches, she didn't give up. She tried and tried and finally won the situation. So that is something amazing, because I thought you will be moving out and you will be stopping everything. But she tried for almost half an hour. And then she didn't give up. That is something we have to learn from her.
Yes.
And then she made this beautiful presentation for us. So calm and collected. Yeah, that is really great, amazing presentation. And I would like to thank you on behalf of all the participants here. Okay, and also to the participants who are present here, we are really, really sorry for the inconvenience caused. But I know you will understand what has happened, and that is quite usual in such workshops on the first day. That the teasing troubles with the first day, and that will be over. And tomorrow we will be joining back at 3 o'clock with the new topic on photo voice, something new for Indian scholars, I'm sure, because in Indian publications, such things are very rare, photo voices and narratives. So we are hoping for that tomorrow. So thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you, Yamini, and all my team. Thank you all participants, and above all, such a big, huge thanks to my dearest friend, Professor Jaya Dantas.
Yes. Thank you, Professor Molly.
Thank you everyone for being here with us and seeing us through this program.